Okay. Um, Sarah asked me to do a blog about the day she was born. Now, that's not one of my childhood stories, but I told about Robbie's, so I have to tell about hers, and I'll get to the other two later. Um, when I was pregnant with Sarah, I was married to Henry, her dad, and I remember my mother must have been at the house that day, and it was probably around dinner time or maybe a little later when I realized I was in labor. And I started timing the contractions. Now, Henry had a poker party going on at the same time in our kitchen, and I was overdue, like 2 weeks overdue. So this was probably not a good time to have a poker party in the kitchen. But he and all his buddies were sitting there playing poker and taking bets on what time I was going to go to the hospital and how big the baby was going to be and all that stuff. So I finally said, okay, that's it. It's time. We got to go to the hospital. And after all this time, it'd been a couple hours since I started having contractions. So after all this time, he stood up from the poker table and said, as only Henry could say, because he talked very slow, he said, I got to find my hat. Now, Henry never went anywhere without a hat, usually his Boston Celtics hat. And so he had to stop and look for his Boston Celtics hat. Well, I'm standing in the doorway with my overnight bag and my mother, who's becoming very fast out of control, saying, you gotta get going, you gotta get going. Um, Meanwhile, he's still walking around the house at a snail's pace saying, I gotta find my hat. I gotta find my hat. Can't go without my hat. I thought the baby was going to be born in the doorway there because he took so long. It probably took him a good 10, 15 minutes to find his hat. It was so funny. So then as we're walking out, we realize he's going to be in the delivery room and he's going to have to put on scrubs. Okay, except Henry never wore underwear. Didn't like them. I don't know. It's weird to me, but it wasn't me. So he suddenly realized he was going to have to change into scrubs and he'd better have some underwear on. So we went off to the hospital, told Mother to find Henry a pair of underwear and bring him to the hospital. It was pretty funny. So right in the middle of labor, here comes my mother in the labor room with underwear for Henry. So it wasn't a particularly long labor. I think it was, let's see, we got to the hospital probably 6:30. I think she was born early in the morning. So for a last child, it wasn't real short. And she was sunny side up. So I always said she was hanging onto a tube in there saying, no, please, I don't want to go. I don't want to go. I'm still sleeping. I'm tired. But the doctor finally said he kept trying to turn her, and she wouldn't turn. She was very happy laying in the position she was in. I said, and the doctor finally said, after about 3 times of trying to turn her unsuccessfully, he said, um, what did he say? How did he put it? He said, "Would you? Is it okay if we use forceps to deliver her?" I said, "Use a frickin' forklift. Get that child out of there." To which he laughed. So a few minutes later, here she was, Sarah. And Henry watched it and still thought she was a boy. So that was the birth of Sarah. The doctor had to say, no, Henry, there's something missing there. Oh, well, there was, huh? Yeah, it was a girl. And which time he promptly left to go celebrate with his friends. I was all used up by that time. I'd had the baby, didn't need me anymore. So go out and have chili dogs and whatever beer with his friends and celebrate having a new baby. Forget the mother. So that was how Sarah was born. And of course, she was well worth it. But I don't know, in later years, maybe not. Who knows? Anyway, that's the story of how Sarah was born. And I forgot to put on Robbie's, when Robbie was born, that he was the cutest, most adorable child ever born in that hospital. And it's not up for a debate. He was the cutest baby born in that hospital ever, and still holds the record to this day. Of course, when I had him, right after they delivered him, they said there was another one. There was a twin. I said, leave it in there. And to this day, Candy and I have often thought, God, what if he had been a twin? Holy moly. But he wasn't. There's only one Robbie. And I'm glad. And one Sarah. Thank you.